They were named for the same man, these two. They knew each other well in the old days, and their all similarity in their lives ended. One went one way, and the other followed different paths. Elder Clabe Mosley, with his everlasting hills in the background. Photo was taken on his 95th birthday. This story, as told by Clabe Mosley, was in the March 13th, 1952 issue of the Floyd County Times. Elder Clabe Mosley and Old Clabe Jones were each named for Clabe Jones Sr. of Hawkins County, Tennessee. The senior Clabe was an uncle of the feud leader, being a brother of John Jones, early settler on the Arnold Fork of Right Beaver Creek. Elder Clabe Mosley led a life of devotion and service to his master. Bad Clabe Jones went down the long trail of feuds and strife, dying in 1914. Elder Mosley lives on at the age of 95, loved and honored by his flock and his people. Clabe Mosley was born on the head of Frazier's Creek, near what is McDowell, Kentucky, in Floyd County. On February the 3rd, 1857, he was the son of Nathaniel and Polly Moore Mosley. His parents were of that hardy stock of pioneers that settled the upper Beaver Creeks. His grandparents, Henry and Rebecca Mosley, came from Hawkins County, Tennessee. The maternal Moores, John and Rachel Bridgman Moore, were from North Carolina and settled at the present Price on Left Beaver Creek. Clabe Mosley has preached in the regular Baptist church for 67 years, a length of time which is in itself the average span of life. He is now as physically vigorous and mentally alert as a man a score years younger. To some families there is granted a vigor and hardihood from hereditary that carries them beyond the biblical 70. Clabe Mosley's brothers lived to be old. Ed, the youngest, still living in 1952, was 73. Lindsay lacked 7 days of being 89 when he died. Jackson, called Coon, lived to be 92. Ed was 91 when the great roll was called. All these brothers were ministers except Coon. The Mosley Church on Troublesome Creek in Knott County was named for the Reverend Lindsay Mosley. Elder Clabe Mosley, he prefers elder to the title of Reverend, married and settled down to earn a living on Caney Creek, near the Raven Post Office. His wife was Polly Terry, and they were married March 21st, 1881. He points out that his wife was not of the Caseboat Terry family, and in pointing this out, it becomes necessary to explain the differences in the families. It seems that nearly a century ago, an orphan boy from the Caseboat family was adopted by a Terry and took the name of his benefactor. Today, the descendants of this orphaned Caseboat write their name as Terry, but oldsters, in referring to them, call them the Caseboat Terrys, a matter for high good humor ever in the two families, for it has been often said, if you are a Caseboat Terry, you are no kin to the Terrys. Clabe and Polly Moore reared a large family, 6 girls and 4 boys. But long before the children were all born, the father had joined the church. This was in 1883. Lindsay, his brother, was moderator of the church that baptized him. 2 years later, he was an ordained minister at the old log church house on Caney Creek, near his home. Today, he is still exhorting his people as a pastor of the regular Baptist church at Topmost in Knott County, and in sermons at other regular Baptist churches of the section. You do not ask Clabe Mosley frivolous questions or seek to get an enlargement upon profane things of the past, for he has a natural dignity that impresses one. His years have given him wisdom and a placid philosophy of life. He tells of the humble things, the prosaic events of existence that make up this mundane pilgrimage. Some of it is about his health, for he has always been blessed with a plenitude of strength. He says, I was never sick very much. I had lumbago at one time for about 5 weeks. I went to the hospital in Ironton, Ohio, and was out of Kentucky for 1 or 2 hours. This was the only time I was ever out of the state. Here, he added, with a twinkle in his eye, you see, I am a Kentuckian by birth and residence. Speaking of physical ills, recalled to his mind that once he had George Thornsbury pull a tooth for him with the old-time tooth drawers of years ago. It was a painful process, and when discussing it with his friends, someone told him a sure remedy for toothache. You want to know what it was? It was never comb your hair or shave on Sunday. He said, I tried it. I have not combed my hair or shaved myself on Sunday for 60 years, and I have never had a toothache since. He likes to talk about the past, of the old hunters, and of the game. He tells of how squirrels were so thick on Caney when he was young that in the morning, while his mother was putting a fire in the stove, his father would grab his rifle and go out into the woods and return soon with several for the morning meal. There was plenty of wild game, including deer and wild hogs. Not many bear, he said, for they had been practically exterminated by the time he was a youngster. An old hunter told me of seeing a bear, he said, and a wild boar meeting in the woods. They came up to each other, and the bear grabbed the boar in a big hug. In this way they fought, the bear hugging the boar, and the boar slashing the bear with his long tusks. In a little while they quit, and fight was separated. Each went a little ways, and both lay down and died. Since he lived in the locale of the Jones-Hall-Wright feud, he told of his acquaintances with old Clabe Jones. And the Jones-Hall-Wright feud was a violent 19th century Kentucky conflict, often centered around Devil John Wright and his rivals, Clabe Jones, and the Hall family. The feud involved intense long-term conflicts, including rival gangs raiding homes, specifically around the mid-1880s in Letcher County near present-day Jenkins. The conflict. Clabe Jones of Beaver Creek and Devil John Wright engaged in a lifelong feud, with stories of them targeting each other's homes, even once passing each other in the dark while planning mutual, simultaneous raids. Devil John Wright, a prominent, ruthless figure. He worked with the Pinkerton Agency and Co. companies and was involved in the later stages of the Hatfield-McCoy feud. The conflict was part of the violent, lawless era in eastern Kentucky involving, for example, Bad Frank Phillips and other figures in the region's intense factional warfare. He knew Captain Bowling Bill Hall of the Upper Right Beaver section. Knew, too, very well another old-time patriarch of the mountains, Captain Anderson Hayes, the Confederate. He is probably the last living eyewitness of the initial event that started Taut Hall on his career of crime that ended with the hangman's noose at Wise, Virginia. It was on Election Day at the mouth of Dry Creek precinct. Taut Hall was a coward. He married into the Triplet family, and they kicked and cuffed him around, finally making a bad man out of him. I was standing looking right at the start of trouble, the minister recalls. All the Upper Right Beaver section from the Floyd County line voted at the mouth of Dry Creek. Here came a large gathering of mountain people to vote. He went on, I saw Billy Triplet talking to Taut, and I knew he was trying to get him to vote a certain way. All at once, Billy kicked Taut on the shin. Taut wheeled, snapped his fingers, and left the election ground. Mr. Mosley didn't see where came the gun Taut carried when he returned to the election grounds. This was pieced in by Elder Clabe's son-in-law, John B. Hall of Topmost, who said that Taut ran to Rube Sloan's and asked to see his gun, pretending he wanted to buy it. Getting possession of the weapon, he ran back to where Billy Triplet was standing. Here, Elder Mosley continues. He says, Taut ran up and stuck the gun out quickly and went bang, bang, twice. Billy fell wounded and Taut ran to the woods. You ought to have seen the men scatter and the women all screamed. There was an old rail fence around the hillside, and Taut went around that. People said Taut got on top of the fence and crowed like a rooster, but I never saw or heard that. There was a constable who pursued Taut. This constable had on a pair of brogan boots, and he set out to arrest Taut. In a little while he came back in a big hurry, the brogan boots just going thump, thump. Just why the constable returned in such a hurry was not told. Certainly he had met and retreated from a man who had been transformed from a peaceable citizen into one of the most desperate and deadly men of the hills. It has been said by others that Taut after this shot Billy again, this time firing through a window, with only a wound resulting. But it was Henry Triplet, brother of Billy, of whom the elders said the notorious Taut was afraid. He always said he was afraid of Henry. Taut finally killed him, shooting from the steps over an old rail fence near the present post office of Hall, Kentucky. Tradition says that Taut said, when he had killed this, his first man, I have always been old coward Taut. From now on, it's going to be old bad Taut Hall. It is with reluctant that one discusses Elder Clabe Mosley in the same story with these feudists. His was a life of such devotion to the cause of Christianity that it is the antithesis of the bad things of this time. He grew up in a household where he never heard his father use a profane word. Of all his brothers, not one ever swore an oath but Lindsay, and he slipped only on one occasion. He never repeated, Clabe himself never used a profane word or drank a drop of whiskey in his life. As he approaches the century mark, he shaves himself, reads large print without glasses, walks without the use of a cane. His wife died January the 6th, 1946, and since that time he has spent most of his time at the home of his son-in-law, John B. Hall, at Topmost. He has 52 grandchildren, 81 great-grandchildren, and one great-great-grandchild. In discussing the difference between life at present and the old days, he says, people enjoyed life better in the old days than they do now, and after talking to him for a while, we, who are so engrossed with the present, think he may be 100% right at that. Elder Clabe Mosley is buried in the Turner Cemetery, located at Raven in Knott County, Kentucky. I'm kin to Clabe Mosley. He is my first cousin 4 times removed. Adeline Mosley is my 3rd great-grandma, great-great-great-grandmother.